Hello, Facebook and YouTube. My name is Lauren, and I'm here from the Jane Goodall Institute to share with you our webinar series. So this is the first of our series that we're doing. So we're really excited to be here and to share this with you. And so I'm just getting everything set up and ready to go. So if you are joining us, I'd love to know where you're joining us from. So please in the comments, put in where you're joining us from. If you are a teacher with a class, or you are from a school, or you're joining us virtually from your home, we'd love to know where you're joining us from. So thank you so much for being here. So again, my name is Lauren. I'm the Roots and Shoots Manager at the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada. And we decided to do this webinar series to engage with our audience when we can't be there in person. I'm usually out and about across Canada, visiting classes and schools and doing presentations. So I'm really excited to be here today virtually to connect with you all across Canada and share a little bit about Jane, about primates, and about my own background, as I actually started as a primatologist, just like Jane, doing fieldwork with primates in Africa too. So just to let you guys know, this is going to be something that's happening every week for the next, I think we have 9 weeks altogether through October, November, and December, early December, sharing interactive presentations with you guys over many different sustainability, environmental, primate, Jane-related topics. So we're super excited to be sharing this with you. So they're going to be every Tuesday at 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern time, so we can hopefully reach everyone across Canada and engage with all of you. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to share my screen so you guys, and I'll start the presentation. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment box. I'd love to answer any questions you have about Jane or primates or what I talk about today in the presentation. So please pop those in the comment box, and I'll answer them at the end. And yeah, we'll get going. So it should be about 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, and love to hear what you guys have any questions or have to say. So we're going to talk about Jane and the world of primates. So Jane Goodall is our founder. She is the one that started the Jane Goodall Institute, obviously. And just a little bit about our organization. So we are part of a global community organization. So there's Jane Goodall Institutes all over the world. Ours in Canada is just one of many. And we advance the work and vision of Dr. Jane Goodall. By protecting chimpanzees and inspiring people to value and protect the natural world that we all share, we improve the lives of people, animals, and the environment. And that's really kind of the basis of the work that we do. So our founder is Dr. Jane Goodall. Hopefully most of you know who she is, but she started just as a young girl with a dream, and then got to go to Africa, where she wanted to go to study wild animals. And she studied chimpanzees and really taught us everything that we know about chimpanzees, and really changed the world of animal research, especially field research, and how we connect with animals in the wild. So Jane was just a girl with a dream. She loved animals. She knew she wanted to go explore Africa after reading the book Tarzan. She knew that she wanted to be just like Tarzan, to go and explore and connect with animals. She had animals all over, all throughout her life. She had a dog that was kind of her first mentor, you could say, teaching her that animals have personalities, they feel things, they are beings just like ourselves. So through her passion and her drive, she made her dream happen. Even though many people thought, why would you go to Africa? It was way back in the 50s and 60s when, young women didn't go to Africa by themselves. But Jane met with Dr. Louis Leakey, who was a paleoanthropologist. So he studied early human bones from hundreds of thousands to millions of years ago to learn more about our evolution and our kind of how we got here today as human beings. But he thought it was also important that we study living ape relatives of ours, because we as humans are part of the great apes family. So it was important to study those living great apes too, so we could better understand our behaviors and biology by looking at them too. So he asked Jane to go out to Tanzania, to a place called Gombe, to study chimpanzees and their behavior. And he thought that women were really good at studying animals. They were really detail-oriented, they really connected, they had empathy for animals. So that's why he asked Jane and 2 other women to go study great apes across the world. So Jane went to Gombe and actually brought her mother with her because at that time, women couldn't go by themselves to Africa. So her mother joined her at the field site and she started her work. And Jane was part of this group of primates. So there was 3 women in their 20s and 30s who were asked by Dr. Lewis Leafy to go study primates. So we have Diane Fossey, who's the tall one over here. She went to study mountain gorillas in Rwanda. We have Jane Goodall in the middle. And then we have Baruta Galdicos on the other side, and she went to study orangutans in Indonesia. Diane Fossey unfortunately passed away while she was doing her field work. Jane, as we know, is still going strong, touring the world in normal times, speaking to everyone about protecting our environment. And Baruta still lives in Indonesia and helps save orphan orangutans. So Jane, when she went to Gombe, at first she had to what we call habituate the chimpanzees. So this means she had to get them used to her because they're wild animals. They fear humans, which is good because humans could hunt them, could harm them. So it was good that chimps fear humans. But she had to get them to know that she wasn't going to hurt them and that they could trust her and and that she wouldn't harm them. And that took time. It took months and months for Jane to be able to get close enough to the chimpanzees to really start observing them close up. And it was David Graybeard here that was the first chimpanzee that kind of got close to Jane and allowed the other chimpanzees to see that she was safe and someone that they could trust. And from that moment on, she got closer to chimpanzees than anyone had before, and she was able to discover so many things about them that no one knew before she did her studies. And one of those was tool use. So chimpanzees, we now know, use tools in many different forms. They use a termite stick, so it's just a stick or a twig that they take all the branches and leaves off, and then they dig it into a termite mound and kind of fish for termites using that stick. We also know that they use rocks or wood to crack open nuts. They can use bones to dig into holes to get other types of food. So they're really, really smart and really capable tool users. But before this time, we thought that we as humans were the only ones who used tools. So Louis Leakey said when Jane discovered this, we must redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as humans. And obviously chimpanzees are not humans, but they're a lot closer to us than we initially thought they were. And with Jane's work, we now know that chimpanzees show behaviors like empathy and love, but also behaviors like warfare-like behaviors where groups of chimpanzees will systematically go into others' territories, unfortunately kill some of those members and kind of take over the territory and access to females. So not only do they show kind of the good sides that we see in ourselves, but also those kind of negative sides. But it does show how similar they are to us compared to just these wild beasts that we used to think chimpanzees and most animals were. And nowadays, not exactly right now because of COVID, COVID has unfortunately grounded Jane in England, but she's keeping safe and healthy there. And she's still reaching out to people all across the world and engaging audiences and youth and people with her messages of hope and for the health of the environment. But usually she's traveling about 300 days of the year. This was when she was last here in Canada in Ottawa just about a year ago. And I was lucky enough to meet her when she was here in Toronto in the spring of last year. So I think it was in April of last year I got to meet her. And that was such a special moment and really meaningful. And if you've seen her speak, which I hope some of you have, it's just such an amazing event to see her speak. She's so passionate. She's so engaged. She really is this beacon of hope that we can make things better. And it's not hope that we could just make things better. We have to try. We have to take that action. And that's really what kind of Roots and Shoots and the work that we do is all about, is showing youth that they can take action, they can make a difference, and they can make this world a better place. And Jane is just this amazing role model to kind of bring that message forward. So we usually post videos of her and the messages she's sharing at the moment. So really something pretty amazing, the work that she does now. And she's 86 years old. So she's still going so strong, which is so great. Okay, so that's like a very quick overview of Jane. There's so much to say about her, but I think a lot of you probably know a lot about her already. I just wanted to give a really brief overview. But I really wanted to talk more about what primates are, because people know chimpanzees a little bit because of Jane, but really don't understand kind of the whole big, amazing group of animals that are primates. And I have a soft spot for primates because my background is in primatology. So like Jane, I studied primates in the wild in Africa, and they are just my favorite group of animals. So primates are a group of mammals, so just like cats or dogs, but are a unique group of mammals that are different from, say, cats or dogs or other types of mammals. And primates, there's a huge variety in the groups of primates. I'm going to talk a little bit about the different groups, and so you guys can learn a little bit about all of them. So we are primates too. As humans, we are part of the primate family. And primates have a suite or a group of traits that make them unique from other mammals. So I'm going to go through those and talk a little bit about what makes them unique. So the first things that make them unique are our hands and feet. So as primates, we have 5 fingers and 5 toes on our hands and feet, and we have these opposable thumbs. So opposable thumbs basically mean that we can pick up objects. So I can pick up this water, I can pick up a pen, I can use tools. So primates can also use these grasping hands and these opposable thumbs to do a lot of similar things. They can grab stones and use them as tools. And they can climb up trees really easily with these grasping hands. And that's why primates don't need claws like you would see in, say, a squirrel climbing a tree. They can use those grasping hands instead. And you can see from the photo here, there's 4 different kinds of primate hands. We have a tarsier, which is a small, tiny primate, an orangutan, a gorilla, and a human. And you can really see how similar, particularly the gorilla and the human, are to each other. You know, there's very few dissimilarities, differences between them. So, you know, we really can see that we are part of this family of primates too. So we also have large forward-facing eyes. So this is similar to, say, predator-type animals like a lion or a tiger, but dissimilar to, say, a horse or a deer that has eyes on the side of their head. So we have these large forward-facing eyes, one, because some primates do hunt other animals for food, but it's mostly because, as I mentioned, primates live mostly up in the trees. They're mostly up in the forest at some point during their day. So to be able to see well and have depth perception is really important when you're navigating the forest canopy. You don't want to be jumping from one tree to another and it's too far away and you're going to fall to the floor. You need to be able to know if you can make that distance. And these forward-facing eyes gives us that depth perception so we can make those judgments. As well, primates have color vision, which is super unique compared to other mammals. Most, like our cats and dogs at home, only can see in black and white and gray. But primates can see in all the colors of the rainbow. We know we can see all colors. And that's really important because most primates eat at least some fruit or leaves as part of their diet. And we all know that fruits change color when they ripen. I know I love to eat a red, juicy strawberry, but not so much a green or white strawberry. And that's why I love getting local produce when it's nice and fresh and hasn't been trucked all the way from California. It doesn't look so great. So primates are the same. They know when fruit in their forest is ripe or unripe, so they know when to eat it. And even leaves can vary in color. So primates actually prefer to eat younger leaves if they do eat leaves in their diet. And those young leaves might be lighter green in color than a darker green, more mature leaf. And that's because young leaves have more protein, have less cellulose, so they're easier to digest. So primates can pick out those differentiations in color and choose those better leaves or fruit to ingest on their day-to-day, during their day-to-day life. So there's 6 main groups of primates. We have lemurs, lorises, tarsiers, New World monkeys, Old World monkeys, and apes. So I'm going to briefly talk about each group so you guys have a little bit of knowledge about each one. So we have the lemurs here. Lemurs are super cool. They are only found in Madagascar, which is a very large island off the eastern coast of Africa. And they're mostly nocturnal. So they're mostly awake during the evening and night, and then they sleep during the day. So that's opposite of what we do as humans. We are diurnal, so we are awake during the day and we sleep at night. And lemurs, for the most part, have a better sense of smell than the rest of the primate family. And that's due to the fact that they have these kind of wet, looking snout noses that are similar that you would see in, say, a dog or a cat. So they use scent marking a lot more than any other group of primates. So their vision is actually not as good as other primates because they're using that sense of smell more than, say, a monkey or an ape would. And there's a huge variety of lemurs. We have larger lemurs like this sifaka. We have tiny lemurs like this mouse lemur, and things in between like this eye. So talking about the eye, this is one of my favorite lemurs just because they're super kind of cute and weird and really interesting. So what's cool about the eye is it's nocturnal and solitary, but you can see this red circle here showing this kind of spindly finger it has. So eyes kind of act like a woodpecker would here in Canada, but in Madagascar. So what they'll do is they will go hunting for food and they will tap on a tree. And if they hear it's hollow when they tap on it, they know that there's holes in there and there might be grubs living in there, which they love to eat. So they have really sharp teeth and they'll gnaw at the hole, kind of like a beaver almost would, and open up that hole and use that spindly finger to dig into that hole to get out those grubs to eat them, which is a super cool way to access a resource that no other animal in Madagascar is able to. So they're kind of acting like the woodpeckers of Madagascar, which I think is super cool. And they're kind of weird and creepy looking, but I think they're super neat. So then we have ringtail lemurs. These are probably my favorite just because they're super cute. They're really charismatic. They have these like orange yellow eyes and these ringtails, and they live in groups. So they're group living, they're diurnal, so they're awake during the day. And what's super cool about these guys is they're actually female dominated. So the females are the ones that run the show, tell the group where to go each day, which is not typical. Most primate groups are male dominant. So these guys are neat. What they'll do is they have these scent glands on their wrists. So what they'll do is they'll bring their tail up in between their legs and they'll rub their scent glands on their tail, and then they'll waft that scent on their tail as they're walking to show if this is their territory, if they're ready to mate. So they use lots of different things. Lots of different behaviors can indicate different things for different scents. So then we have lorises and bush babies. So these guys are found in Africa and Asia. So we have the bush baby up here, they're in Africa, and then the loris down here, which is in Asia. So they are nocturnal, so they're awake at night. You see this one's peeking at night, and they're asleep during the day. What's unfortunate though is the slow loris down here is unfortunately very endangered. So slow lorises have been unfortunately the victim of the illegal pet trade. Lots of people like to have them as pets. Because they are very cute and adorable and they're quite small, they're only about this big. But what's actually quite dangerous about them as a pet is they're actually the most venomous they're actually the only venomous primate. So basically like a venomous snake would say inject venom into you if it was angry. The slow loris will bite you, and the saliva it has in its mouth has a venom-like substance. So it would cause a really big sore kind of area on your arm, and this is their protection against predators. But having a pet that can bite you like that probably isn't a good idea. So unfortunately, when they're caught in the wild to have as pets, their teeth are ripped out. So if I can ask kind of one thing that you guys take away from this is that primates are not pets. Primates are wild animals that should stay in their natural environment, and you can help prevent this from happening by not sharing images of primates who are dressed up in human clothes, who look like they're in a home environment and being treated as a pet. Because we really don't want people to think that this is something normal, this is something good. We want to not share those images so people realize that these are wild animals. So share those wild photos of monkeys, of chimpanzees in the wild, in their natural habitat, not as pets. So now we have tarsiers. So tarsiers are super cool. They live in the Philippines. I love them because they are super tiny. They're these little nocturnal primates, and they're actually the only carnivorous primates. So they will hunt insects at night, and they use their big, gigantic eyes. You can see how their eyes are so huge to hunt insects in the evening. And you can see their skull, their eyes are actually so big, they take up so much room in their skull, they actually can't physically move their eyeballs around. I can move my eyeballs all around, but tarsiers can't. They actually have to move their head, and they can move their head almost 360 degrees around their body, which is also super cool. All right, so now we have New World monkeys. So New World monkeys live in South and Central America, and they spend most of their time up in the trees. And there's a huge variety within the groups of New World monkeys. We have everything from stachy monkeys, ukari monkeys, capuchins, marmosets, and spider monkeys. There's howler monkeys, squirrel monkeys, so many different types of monkeys. And what's super cool about New World monkeys is they have a prehensile tail. So a prehensile tail basically means a tail that acts like an arm or a leg. And what's really cool, you can see this, this is a spider monkey. I think they're called spider monkeys because they just have these long limbs. They stretch out kind of like the spider looks like. And this guy is drinking some water from a stream and hanging from his tail. And so the back of their tail actually is covered in a similar kind of skin like the palms of our hands. So when we rub our hands together, it gets kind of hot because of friction. So that kind of rough skin helps the monkeys grab on with that tail. Otherwise, if it was just fur, they wouldn't really be able to grasp on really well and they might just slip off. So super cool adaptation that allows them to get around in the forest a lot more easily. All right, so then we have Old World monkeys. So these guys live in Africa and Asia. They tend to have shorter tails than New World monkeys. They don't have prehensile tails, and they tend to live on the ground and in the trees. So that we call them arboreal and terrestrial. Arboreal is in the trees, terrestrial is on the ground. And they tend to have cheek pouches. So this is a really cool thing. You can see in this photo here with the arrow that this monkey, this rhesus macaque, has food stuffed in these cheek pouches. So they do this because a lot of monkeys eat fruit, and sometimes it can be hard to get enough fruit before another monkey comes and wants their spot. So what they'll do is if they come upon a nice patch of fruit like figs, they'll just stuff their cheek pouches so they have some food for later, kind of acts like a little backpack so they can have food when they're hungry later on and there may not be food in their environment to eat at that moment. So some examples of Old World monkeys are baboons. So we have 5 subspecies of baboons. We have some of them here. We have olive up here. We have hamadryas and chacma. There's also yellow and a hybrid between yellow and olive. They're pretty much terrestrial, so they walk on the ground most of the day. They will sleep up in the trees at night so they can stay away from predators. And baboons are found all over eastern and southern Africa. And they're actually one of the few primate species that isn't endangered because they are just so adaptable. They can live in many different environments. They can eat a wide variety of foods, and they sometimes can get eaten by predators. Sometimes big cats will take their young, or some things like beagles can take their young, but they're a pretty hardy group. They're a pretty hardy monkey, so they tend to survive really well, which is really good to see. Another main group of Old World monkeys are macaques, and they live in Asia with only one species, the Barbary macaque, which is in Morocco, that lives in Africa. And they're also terrestrial, so again, they're mostly on the ground, but will tend to sleep in trees for safety at night. And they're the most widespread primate after people, which is kind of cool. And there's tons of different macaques. We have everything from the Japanese macaque that lives in the highlands of Japan, and in the wintertime, they go into these hot springs to keep nice and warm. There's lots of videos out there showing that, which is super cute. We have rhesus macaques, which are very populous in India. A lot of them live in the temples in India. And this is also another macaque that lives more in the islands, kind of in Indonesia. So then we get to apes. So this is where chimpanzees are in. This is our group of primates where we fit in as humans. So in this group, we have orangutans, we have chimps, we have gorillas, we have humans, and we have bonobos. So bonobos, I didn't mention before, were one of the monkeys, or sorry, apes that were not one of the apes that Dr. Louis Leakey had anyone study, because at that time, no one knew that they existed. They were only discovered quite later on, and a lot of people initially thought they were just smaller chimpanzees, but now we know that they're their own species. And they actually only live in the Democratic Republic of Congo, so they're only in one country in Africa versus chimps that are found in Eastern Africa and Western Africa, and gorillas that are also found in multiple countries. Well, what's really cool about apes is they're the largest of the primates. They have no tails, so that's what makes them different from monkeys. And they have the largest brain. So we see that because we see tool use in a lot of apes. We see a lot of kind of higher cognitive functions and kind of complex social systems. They have a longer lifespan, so they tend to live up to maybe 50 years in the wild, and in captivity up to 60. And they have long arms, and that allows them to do what we call knuckle walking. So they walk actually on their knuckles versus flat on their palms like we would see with the monkeys. So those are the primates. So again, a quick overview of primates, of the different groups. Again, I could talk about this stuff all day because this is what I love. This is my background, but really kind of good overview about kind of all the different groups. And if you're interested to get to know some of them more, there's tons of great resources out there on the internet, especially Primate InfoNet has great resources for all different kinds of primates. And then obviously janegoodall.com, .ca, you can learn more about Jane as well. So if you go on our website, janegoodall.ca, you can sign up for our mailing list, get any of our updates, and learn more about Jane and the chimpanzees. All right, so I'm just going to talk a little bit now about my own background, my own fieldwork. So I'm actually as a primatologist, that was my background. So that's what I went to school for. I went to school for animal behavior for my undergrad, and then I ended up going to grad school for evolutionary anthropology. And all of this started because I went to Tanzania when I was an undergrad and fell in love with the country, with the continent, and with monkeys. When I was there, I had to do an independent research project. And initially, I wanted to study lions. I loved the big cats, but realized it just wasn't a feasible project to do. So instead, I turned to these adorable vervet monkeys, which would always visit our field site and try to steal our food. So they're very funny, very curious, very charismatic little monkeys. And I studied their grooming and aggressive behavior. So in monkeys, grooming is the way that individuals bond and kind of create those social bonds. Just like we might call a friend on the phone or text a friend, monkeys and primates will groom each other to create those social bonds. So with those bonds, they can kind of relax and get to know each other and diffuse any kind of tension in the group. So I was looking at if there are more grooming after an aggressive encounter than just the day-to-day grooming activities, which there were, which was super cool to see. But through my time there, I just fell in love with these monkeys. I fell in love with Africa. I remember there was a day where I was just sitting under this big fig tree, and all of these figs were falling around me, and all these monkeys are just up in the tree enjoying themselves. And I was just like, this is it. This is what I want to do. So from that experience, I ended up going to Kenya to do field work for my graduate degree in Kenya with all the baboons. It was a very different experience. We were there for 2 months. I was every day out in the field. We had a house. We got to go out with the baboons every day. It was a lot wilder. There was a lot more wildlife than where I was in Tanzania. So there were times when we would get surrounded by buffalo, and we would have to sit and wait because buffalo are very dangerous. They can charge at anything. There were days when I got heat stroke because it was so hot. There was a time when a baboon stole my binoculars. Thankfully, dropped them and I got them back. So fieldwork is super fun, super exciting, and I definitely recommend if you're interested in studying animals and studying wildlife to look at fieldwork. It's so rewarding, and it's just amazing to be out there with these wild animals in their natural environment and kind of be a fly on the wall watching their lives as they go about them. And through all that, I just really felt this bond with Jane, and it feels like life has come full circle. I didn't end up becoming a professor and becoming a researcher. I got into environmental education instead, but the fact that I now work for the Jane Goodall Institute, I really feel connected to Jane with my background that's similar to hers, and really feel like life has kind of come full circle to allow me to work for her organization and to promote her work and environmental sustainability for youth. So that's my talk. So thank you so much for joining me. I am happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. So I'm going to go to the chat bar and see what questions we had. So a question from Debbie. Are Jane's primates at higher risk ourselves from COVID illness? Her chimps in Gombe themselves, I don't think are at any higher risk than any other primates are. I mean, primates can get COVID. We do know that chimps can get COVID. So it's just a matter of taking precautions when they're doing field work, making sure to wear masks, which we do anyways. When we do field work in Africa, we're always wearing masks because anything like a cold or a flu can also pass between humans and chimpanzees or other primates. So we're always making sure to wear those masks, to wear the PPE to protect them from anything that we might have ourselves. And anyone else have any questions you want to post in the comments? I'm happy to answer them. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me today. This is the first time doing this, so it's a bit of a learning curve still, but I'm really excited to be here, and we'll be here every Tuesday, like I said, either 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you only were able to join us for a little bit, we'll also be posting a recording of the whole webinar, so you can check it out later and share with your students if you're interested as well. So I'm going to end the broadcast here if there aren't any other questions. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully see you next week at Tuesday at 1 o'clock. I will be talking about how to do roots and shoots at home and how to use iNaturalist to kind of become your own kind of backyard scientist. You can learn more at rootsandshoots.ca. You can join our mailing list. If you go to janegoodall.ca, check out all of our updates, our newsletter, get up to date on our events and what's happening in the field and everything that we're doing. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you next week.